Good morning. It's a great pleasure to be invited back. Must be doing something right. This is the third part of my four-part series on aging. In the first part, I talk about our cultural attitude towards aging and issues around ageism. The second part, I talk about aging as our spiritual journey. For this third part, we're going to talk about the inevitable ending of our life. Dying and death is one of the toughest topics to talk about. I remember when I proposed this topic as part of the aging series I would do for your congregation, it was suggested that I soften the title. If you have recently faced some life and death issues or experienced a loss, I hope you might find some comfort and support for your pain here. As we are busy living our lives, death is not something we usually think about. In a sacred Hindu poem, Mahabharata, there is a question that speaks to this tendency. In all the worlds, what is most wondrous? The answer that is given is that no man, no woman, though they see people dying all around them, believe it will happen to them. And no one wants to die. Death is so final. My friend Howard used to joke about this. She says, Christians believe they'll go to heaven when they die, but no one is in a hurry. This modern world is so afraid of death that we would do anything to avoid the subject. We use the word pass away, expire, instead of die. We make plans for all kinds of things in our lives, but we often avoid thinking, talking, or planning about our death. In Asian culture, we never talk about death and dying in front of our elders out of respect. And the doctors very seldom talk about the conditions of the elder patient also. In this country, we spend more than 50% of our healthcare dollars in the final 6 months of our lives. We put our elders in places such as nursing homes so we won't face their day-to-day fading away. We have a multi-billion-dollar cosmetic and plastic surgery industry was created to keep us looking young. Every day, more advanced technology is developed to extend our lives. However, try as we might, we cannot change the fact that we're all going to die someday. However, not all end-of-life experiences are alike. Death comes suddenly, or it can linger for a while. My father often said that when he goes, he wants to just go to sleep and never wake up. And no pain, no prolonged suffering. He got his wish. When he died, I didn't have a chance to say goodbye, since none of us around him saw this coming. 10 years later, I was hit with a tidal wave of grief. I grieved for the missed opportunity to finish all the conversations with him. My mother's journey was a bit different when she developed dementia. For a whole year, I watched her gradually disappear into herself. I noticed how she and I had switched places as mother and daughter. During the last 6 days of her life in hospice care, she spent most of her waking moment looking at the ceilings. Her lips were moving as if she was talking to someone, but no sound. I played all the old Chinese opera for her. One day, the cassette tape stopped. With her eyes closed, she said, "You need to turn the tape over." This was how I knew she was still conscious. A day later, suddenly, she opened her eyes and looked at me. I took this opportunity to tell her I love her and ask her for forgiveness for my not being a perfect daughter. She answered in the most lucid voice, "I love you too, You are a perfect daughter. Then I said to her, please do not worry, I'll be fine. She closed her eyes and never spoke another word. A day later, she was gone. When she let out her last breath, I climbed onto the bed and held her body until the last bit of warmth dissipated from her. After they took my mother's body away, I got in the car for a long drive. I thought as long as I was moving, I still had her with me. Now I miss her often, but I feel I have walked the journey with her to the end, and I had no more unfinished business. By now, most of us are familiar with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's model of the 5 stages of grieving. When we face a loss, we typically go through a series of 5 emotions: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. However, these stages are not sequential. We often recycle the reactions. Sometimes these feelings of loss start long before our loved one had died. When my mother's dementia got more advanced, I knew I have lost the mother I had for all these years. My grief has started. Most of us have not trained ourselves to deal with difficult emotions. We are not prepared to face the ending of our loved one's life. We might get trapped in denial, where we either pretend everything is fine or we run away because we don't know what to do and how to help. We might feel abandoned by our loved ones, so we act out our angers. After our loved one died, we might feel guilty or regret that we have unsaid apologies and unfinished conversations. Now it's too late. The dying sometimes linger because they're not sure their loved ones are okay. Often it is the families that find it most difficult to let go. The most loving thing for us to do is to assure the dying that we'll be fine and it is okay for them to go. Illnesses, dying, and death magnify our significant relationships. Communication is the key to all healthy relationships. We need to have enough love and courage to talk to each other and attend to the unfinished conversation. It's natural to want to protect children from the harsh reality of life. However, professionals who work with families strongly encourage us to avoid trying to protect them. Even the youngest need some kind of preparation for the future. Honesty is important. Children can usually sense changes and stress in the household and know when something is wrong. They have the most amazing capacity to handle harsh reality. In one of his interviews, Kubler-Ross co-author David Kessler talked about the difference between early grief and mature grief. Early grief is immediate. The feeling is sharp. Mature grief comes and goes and can stay with us for a long, long time or forever. We are never totally ready to say goodbye. If we walk with the dying all the way to the end, we might be more prepared to deal with our own dying. As I was preparing for this sermon, I realized that facing the end of life, whether for our loved ones or ourselves, is the same journey. We all go through similar emotions, stages as the way we grieve for the loved ones that we have lost. When I work in the hospital as a chaplain, I work on the oncology and critical care unit, where the patients usually face the imminent endings. Facing the end is a gut-wrenching experience. We might get angry and frustrated. We might have some regrets and guilt for things we have done. The silence around can add to the loneliness of dying, and we might be afraid what is to come at the end. To make my life and others' life mean something, we need to find lessons in this journey. David Kessler, in his new book, Making Meaning, as the stage 6 of our grieving process, talk about making meaning of someone's death to honor this person's life. Making meaning is also about gathering the learning, finding revelation of our own lives. Finding meaning is part of our grief as a way of cushioning our pain. Facing our grief, it is normal to want to feel like there is a purpose in life and that there is a reason for being on earth and for what has happened in life. We can find meaning in our work, our family, stories we can leave behind. The end-of-life experience is full of meaning that can be uncovered using personal reflection. An American Buddhist teacher and a leader in the field of end-of-life care, Frank Ostaseski, wrote, "Dying is at its heart a sacred act. It in itself is a time, a space, and the process of surrender and transformation. The sacred is not separate or different from all things, but rather hidden in all things. Dying is an opportunity to uncover what is hidden. In our despair, we wonder out loud, if we all end up dying at the end, why do we bother to live? What is the meaning anyway? We may yell at God or anyone, why do good people die so soon? Why do young people die before the old? Why do bad things happen to good people? These are the ultimate meaning of life questions. From the Buddhist point of view, we are one with the universe. We are more than just our small selves. So even though our physical selves have perished, we are still part of this universe. We are alive to discover our basic goodness and authentic being. Living and dying are light as feathers. Buddhism reminds us that we are part of the cosmos and universe, which will go on forever. Being part of this universe is the meaning of life. When we walk in nature, seeing trees, birds, flowers, waves in the water, we know we are connected to this universe. They say this is where we find the divine. Our connections is complete even after we have died. It makes the time we have while we're living worthwhile. For our whole life, we have searched for a path to come home to our authentic selves, which is our innate goodness. The authentic selves live in all of us. When I started studying Buddhism, I came across this idea called impermanence. It hit me hard for the first time. I cried so much. I threw a temper tantrum because I panicked that I wouldn't have enough time to live more and accomplish more. I grieved for my unavoidable ending. Now I understand what impermanence really means. It asks us to let go of certainty and live fully in this moment so we will have no regret when it's time for us to leave this world. More often, dying is not a static, but a dynamic moment, a movement. If we choose to stay awake and pay attention, we can decide how we will take this course. Some of us have died. Have been dying for a long time because our heart and spirits have checked out. Even our bodies are still here. Some of us, with our heart and spirits alive, can continue to squeeze every moment out of our lives while our bodies are disappearing. In the book called A Year to Live, a Buddhist teacher, Stephen Levine, he reminded us that it takes our whole life to prepare our exit so that we will have no incomplete dreams when we do go. During my time as a hospital chaplain, I specifically chose to work in the oncology and critical care units because I want to know what the patient's experience are all about. Every day I listen to the patients talking about the pending end of their lives. Some have fear and anxiety in their voices and their eyes, but most have peace and relief. Having worked with death and dying for years, Levine talked about often when someone was told they had only limited amount of time to live, after their heart constricted and with pain and despair, suddenly they let go of the burden they've been carrying all their lives, and they felt completely free to live out the remaining of their lives. Their hearts expand. Ostaseski wrote, "Mirrors respect the truth of what strikes their surface. The eyes of a dying patient are the clearest mirror I have ever known. In their gaze, there is simply no place to hide. Lying in bed in a thin hospital gown with all their dignity stripped away forces the patients to come face to face with the truth of life and become honest with themselves. In the end, when the person makes peace with him or herself and accept this inevitable truth of life, they will stop the struggle, let go, and become free." Levin wrote, "Many of us live our lives as half-born. We need to shed our burdens, not just possessions, but emotional baggage, and expand our hearts and complete our birth. To complete our birth is to be fully alive and be a whole human being. Traveling light but open-hearted will bring us more happiness, knowing that present moments are our biggest gift that includes love, friendship, family, add a meaning to someone else's life. Spreading our love from our big hearts will also help us heal our fragmented selves." A year ago, I lost one of my very best friends, Jim. He realized that there was no cure when the cancer metastasized into his bones, and all the pain pills did not help improve his quality of life. So he decided to end it. Before he died, he and his wife, Jackie, reflected on their life together and made this joint decision. In the last few days of his life, Jim was surrounded by members of his men's group for 50 years and his family. There was nothing but peace at the end. In June this year, Jackie was diagnosed stage 4 peritoneal cancer. Surgery will not help stop the spread of the cancer cell, and there is no cure. She took charge of her care, just like the way she had always taken care of her life. In July, I went to spend some time with her just to help with the chores that she's too tired to do. I know she will manage her death on her own terms. She calmly talked about when she would enter her palliative care. She cataloged all the articles that she and Jim had written throughout their international consulting careers. She organized photos taken on all the trips so her children and grandchildren could keep their memories alive. Witnessing Jim and Jackie's process, I realized the best revenge is to have full control and have a say in how we'll exit in this world. On the oncology floor, I visited a woman several times. Her smooth face with full makeup did not show that she has gone through 25 surgeries. When I asked her if she was afraid to die, she said, "No, I'm going home to my father." If we believe we're going somewhere after our last breath, we might not be so frightened. Many major religions teach us to prepare to meet our makers with all the glories. In Buddhism, our maker is our true self. The work starts the day we were born. Our goal is to become our whole self before our last breath. This is how we'll make peace with our ending. This is the complete birthing and dying process. Namaste, shalom, amen. Blessed be.